Good afternoon. Welcome to National PTA's Learning Lab series, an online educational series devoted to helping parents navigate this virtual world within the pandemic. We're very excited to have Harvard Graduate School of Education today here with us to talk about what your children are doing on screen. Learning labs are opportunities, again, for parents to get tangible takeaways and tips. And we're going to explore today how parents can respond, the detail of importance of parents understanding the vital role media literacy now plays in our media-saturated world. Using data, film clips, and commentary from experts, this learning lab will show you how you can be screen time savvy. We'll have two opportunities for Q&A that you can submit through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen or in the chat function by selecting panelists in that blue dropdown. Again, learning labs are sponsored sessions and National PTA does not endorse any commercial entity, product, or service. No endorsement of sponsored companies is implied. Today's speaker is Randy Testa, excuse me, please. Randy Testa, welcome. Randy Testa works in the Professional Education Division of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, devising with Harvard faculty online learning experiences for parents and educators. Prior to coming to Harvard, Testa worked for 12 years at a major movie studio on the family-friendly films such as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Charlotte's Web, and The Watsons Go to Birmingham. I'll allow Randy to take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. And the title of our webinar today is Parents, do you know what your children are doing on screen? Becoming media savvy parents, an exploration in 8, and that should say short parts. And so just a couple of things. I'm working on 3 screens, so I'm not being asocial if I start talking and I'm not looking directly into the camera. So forgive me, this is the new world we're living in. And again, you'll see 2 big intermission placards from like 1950s drive-in movies where we will invite you to chat, offer comments, raise questions. So if we could ask you to kindly hold off till the intermission signs come up and you'll know when they're there. So thank you. So part 1, introductions. My name is Randy Michael Testa, and I oversee the building out of programs pre-K to grades 12 for educators in the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And I want to begin by first doing a shout out to our friends at PTA, Amaya and Caroline. You've been great. It's really important to know there's wonderful backstage people helping us at PTA. So thank you. So just a quick word about what in the heck is professional education. So it's part of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. We serve more than 14,000 educators around the world each year through more than 110 non-degree programs for early childhood, K-12, and higher ed professionals. And we're now excitedly expanding our reach by inviting parents to join us from home in a number of our online programs. We as educators know the vital importance of parents in the education of their children. Chaired by Harvard faculty and grounded in the latest research, our professional ed programs are designed to make a direct impact on the practice of education professionals, the work of schools and institutions, the lives and learning of students, and now the parents whose children are entrusted to schools too. That's really important. And so I also want to tell you that in a former life, as Amaya said, I worked for 12 years in a movie company. I worked for Walden Media. And these are some of the movies that we brought out that you and your kids might know: Holes, The Chronicles of Narnia, Charlotte's Web, most recently Wonder. And I was the Vice President of Education and Professional Development. So I wear 2 hats today coming to you. So again, in this webinar, you'll note some telling statistics as to what kids are doing with screens. We'll ask you as parents, what are you doing? And detail the importance of the vital role that media literacy plays in our media-saturated world today. And We're also going to be showing you how to capitalize on the educational value of book-to-screen adaptations coming out or streaming now during the pandemic. Part 2, online in a pandemic world. The prophecy of Zelda the Mysterious comes true. So in 2001, what was then the International Reading Association, now the International Literacy Association, looked into the future and made a prophecy. Quote, "The act of reading in today's world is on the verge of reinventing itself, and many educators include visual literacy, technological literacy, literacy, and other literacies in their definition of what it means to be literate. Indeed, in order to read, students and educators must now be able to decode information from all types of media." So this is a really interesting chart showing consumers' changing habits during the pandemic. And this is based on a survey of about 3,000 people. And you can see that people are streaming more, they're watching more videos on YouTube. I'll raise my hand on this one. They're ordering more takeout from restaurants. I mean, this is where we are right now. And this is just a kind of quick snapshot as to where we are during the pandemic. And as the coronavirus pandemic placed a quarter of the world's population under lockdown, millions of people went online for entertainment and more. And total internet hits surged by between 50 and 70%, according to preliminary statistics cited by Forbes magazine. Further, Forbes notes, quote, "A sudden onset of new educational procedures shook up the online media habits inside many homes. Data shows that the need to teach kids and keep them occupied swept aside former rules regarding screen time and social media usage." So the questions we pose are, what are kids doing with screens now in this COVID world? What are their parents doing? And what are the implications for both, for development and for social and emotional well-being? Here's another really interesting brief graph. Online streamers are spending more time online. They're spending more time watching videos. And again, this is based on 9,000 users between the ages of 16 and 64. They're watching more broadcast TV. They're listening to more streaming services. So again, this, you've got the average and then what happened when the coronavirus pandemic hit. Well, so the bottom line is we're all on screens now, and education is being mediated by and disseminated through media, formally and informally. We sort of all look like the Brady Bunch now. We're all on Zoom screens in our little boxes, and here we are. Part 3, the urgency of media literacy. Who created this message and why? So the big question is, what's media literacy? So this first definition comes from Common Sense Media. Media literacy is the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages they're sending. Kids take in a large amount of information from a wide array of sources, far beyond the traditional media, TV, radio, newspapers, and magazines of most parents' youth. There are text messages, memes, viral videos, social media, video games, advertising, on and on and on. But all media shares one thing. Someone created it, and it was created for a reason. Understanding that reason is the basis of media literacy. And then another definition from the National Association for Media Literacy Education. Media literacy is the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. So there are four core concepts to think about. All media messages are constructed. Media messages are constructed using a creative language with its own rules. Different people experience the same media message differently. Media have embedded values and points of view. And most media messages are organized to gain either profit and or power. And so out of this come 5 key questions. Who created this message? What creative techniques are used to attract my attention? How might different people understand this message differently from me? What values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented in or omitted from this message? And why is this message being sent? And so I want to be really clear about something by asking this, well, should media literacy be a compulsory school subject? And what I want to be clear about is we're not talking about showing kids how to use iPads. So this is a question that came from one of you. I'm interested in learning about what children are tuning into. So the Common Sense Media Census Report, which comes from 2019, says that tweens are using media for non-school related activities for close to 5 hours per day, while daily screen time for teens is more than 7 hours per day. The census points out that the #1 screen media activity for both tweens and teens is watching TV and videos, with tweens spending 53% of their daily screen time and teens 39% of their daily screen time. So with the pandemic, these figures are probably even more for both groups. And here are 2 pie graphs showing the top screen media activities for tweens and teens. Tweens on the left, teens on the right. And again, #1 for both is watching TV and videos, and #2 is playing games. But you also see social media figures largely, content creation, e-reading, gaming, video chatting. This is where kids are. And so here comes our first intermission. And so we have 2 questions for you. And so you can kindly respond by writing in the chat. So the first question, and pick one or both or neither. The first question is, in what ways do you oversee your children's use and consumption of digital media? And the second question is, what do you find exciting about digital media or cause to be hopeful? So we'll give you a second, and then Amaya is going to curate the chat, as we say.
You can submit your answers in the chat function, or if you'd rather have them be anonymous, through the Q&A function. So Randy, it looks like several of our participants use some sort of technological tool to track time, and or they do it by hand. These time limitations, how do you determine what is an effective rate for your particular child? Or do you have any insight on that kind of a time tracking opportunity?
Yes, and I'm not saying this to be cheesy, but stay tuned because we will come to that. And that's not to blow that off. It's a really good question. And again, it's on lots of parents' minds these days. So I'll get to that. And if I haven't, you can come back and say, hey, you told a big fat lie. Anything else?
I think there were a couple of comments about having conversations with your children, asking them about what they're doing online, what they're learning. I'm also seeing some other tools when social media consumption inspires creativity is an opportunity for a conversation, and general parent engagement. We've also got some comments about challenging children to explore other opportunities, actually in-person interactive opportunities, ways to get offline, having children engage with their parents and talking to them about how they use social media and digital media. And then, of course, the always challenging when you do use tools to limit time, the ability of children to figure out a workaround.
Absolutely. This is our world. These are really, really good, insightful comments, and I look forward to expanding them with you. This sounds like a really screen-savvy group of people, so I hope to add to what the good comments that you've been making. This is a big one. Who is assisting students with making sense of information and sources of information so readily available now by way of screens? One can argue that this was a huge issue in the recent presidential election. And speaking of, this is a study from Stanford, and I'm quoting from it. The relationship between misinformation and media literacy has been an increasingly prevalent issue. A series of Stanford studies revealed that teens struggle to discern fact from fiction and propose that news and information literacy is a necessity in order for young people to effectively engage as active citizens. Reliable information is to civic health what sanitation and potable water are to public health. I want to read that again. Reliable information is to civic health what proper sanitation and potable water are to public health. High quality educational materials, validated by research and distributed freely, are essential to sustaining the vitality of American democracy. Educational systems move slowly. Technology doesn't. If we don't act with urgency, our students' ability to engage in civic life will be the casualty. Part 4, what are parents doing and why it matters? So this is from a recent article, and I love this title, Alone Together, as this picture illustrates. And I want to just read a brief section of this. Some parents felt mobile devices help, quote, keep kids quiet, decrease conflict, and lead to more peace and quiet in the home. One parent put it this way: it's so easy, just put up your feet, plug it in, and it's over with. And he's watching a DVD, and I'm on my phone. It's quiet and peaceful. It's like no conflict. So this is a really interesting little article called The New Normal: Parents, Teens, Screens, and Sleep. So here are 5 things you ought to know. Number 1, parents and teens keep their mobile devices close by at night, including 1/3 of teens who keep their mobile devices in bed with them. At nights, parents say they keep their devices within reach of the bed, while at a lower rate than parents, many children also say they have their device within reach of their bed, but they are more than twice as likely as their parents to have it in the bed with them. Girls tend to sleep with their mobile devices more than boys. Number 2, many teens and parents are having their sleep interrupted by notifications. 1 in 3 teens wakes up and checks their mobile device for something other than the time at least once a night. 1 in 4 parents does this as well. While parents say they are waking up and checking because they received a notification or couldn't sleep, children say they are waking up and checking because they received a notification and or they want to check social media. Number 3, doctors and researchers say not to use screens in the hour before bed, but parents and teens do. The majority of parents check their mobile device within 30 minutes of falling asleep. Similarly, a majority of children check their mobile devices within 30 minutes of falling asleep at night. Number 4, the number of parents who say they spend too much time on their mobile devices has increased by 23 points since 2016. In other words, more than half of parents feel they are spending too much time on their mobile devices. Parents today are much less likely to say they spend the right amount of time, down 26 points since 2016. And number 5, more kids wish their parents would get off their devices. There has been an 11-point increase in the number of children who think their parents spend too much time on their device. There is also a 22-point decrease in the number of children who think their parent spends the right amount of time. So within one of our online programs, we ask you to chart your own screen time. Create a log to track your device use and media habits. Remember to include activities you do during the day, the school day, and at home. And so I'm just showing that this is the kind of thing we're asking you to think about in our online program. And so we recommend that you do this for 3 or 4 days. You might want to focus on weekdays, weekends, or both, maybe to help explore the differences. And here's the important part of this. This is not as easy as you might think. And it can be a more intense experience than you might imagine. So proceed gingerly. We just finished the first 4-week run of this program. Overwhelmingly, that's what people said about this activity. You might be in for quite a surprise as to what you are doing or not doing. And you may even need to remind yourself to be honest in your charting. So these are some of the things that we find people come up with and we ask these questions. What were some of the assumptions you had about your media use prior to this experience? And probably most important, in what ways do you now better understand the relationship between what you are doing and what your children are doing, and the attitudes that you bring to both? Part 5, representation in media. You can't be what you can't see. So, what are the learning implications of entertainment media with regard to representation? In other words, who is depicted on screen and how, and who is missing? How might these representations or lack of representation impact the identity development of viewers? So again, in our program, we look at the current state of representation through content analysis data, as well as implications from a variety of perspectives, some research-based and others more critical, analytic, and even personal. And so it's important to point out that the response, the record-breaking response of the Marvel Disney film, not to mention the surrounding social media flurry and subsequent think pieces, reveal just how hungry audiences are for stories like Black Panther, stories that center on those who are sorely underrepresented in mass media. And I added this, here. So soon after the shocking news of Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman's death at age 43, parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles began posting photos of funerals staged by little children for King T'Challa with their action figures. the actor's lead character from the Marvel blockbuster. And here's this poignant picture. And this is what I added yesterday. This might be a very good time to view the film Minari. And if you haven't seen it, I could not recommend enough that you view Minari. It will break your heart, and it will piece it back together again. Part 6, finding educational value in entertainment content, making the case for using books and their movie adaptations together. So this is copy that's taken right off the Netflix website, and I'm using it as an example, not to pitch it to you. So Netflix says, in fact, led by Bridgerton, half of the top 10 titles on the New York Times bestseller list this month are books tied to Netflix series. And they're not alone in having a literary revival. Many of you as parents will know The Babysitter's Club. Those books have sold over 176 million copies since they first came out. Everybody in my office either knows or has read those books. And The Babysitter's Club on Netflix has been wildly successful. And those stories have been updated, speaking of representation, for a contemporary audience. I mean, this is, with a pandemic, this is a kind of literary and cinematic goldmine. And lots of it is really good content. So Netflix is also bringing out in May a book widely read in junior high and high school called Monster by Walter Dean Myers, about a young African-American student accused of participating in a murder in a heist of a bodega. And so we look at, in one of our programs, a way of working with books and their screen adaptations for teachers and parents. Generally speaking, in schools, students and teachers slog through the book, and then the big reward is they get to see the movie. Well, we're asking people to think about something different. In our online program titled Deeper Than Edutainment, the idea is to capitalize on and embrace the use of stories twice told, like book to movie. So to use the stories together and equally. So we're looking at stories that cross from one content platform, usually a book, over to another content platform, a movie most typically. And that's our term for that crossing. We call this cross media. And so again, the idea is that the book and the movie are equal partners, and we explore how to do that. So this is what this looks like. So there is the wildly popular novel 13 Reasons Why that became a 4-season Netflix series, hugely controversial, called 13 Reasons Why. Here's the movie poster for Black Panther. And Black Panther is based on numerous characters and plot lines from the Black Panther comic book series. And so here's the cross of our cross media. Now, I'm going to talk about, as an example of cross media, the wildly popular novel Wonder. Wonder is the #2 most widely read book in grades K through 5 elementary school. It hands down. And Wonder was made into a wildly successful film. And within our program, we've created a Wonder Educators resource because of the power of this story around the representation of differently abled students. And what you might not know is that Wonder, the title of the book, is based on a song by Natalie Merchant. So for the next few minutes, I want to show you a video that is representative of the kind of video that's in our programs. And so I'm going to do this carefully. I'm going to stop sharing. Has this come up on your screen?
Not yet. You may have to share the active screen of the video.
How about now?
And then once you start sharing, you may need to share your active screen again.
Oh, wait. Oh, yes. I got it. Wait. Thanks, everyone, for your patience.
I wrote Wonder about
How's that? Great.
a girl who was born with unusual qualities that set her apart and presented her with challenges. I didn't realize how many families have been waiting for a song about their special circumstances, and Wonder has really become their song.
Doctors have come from distant cities just to see me. Stand over my bed, disbelieving what they're seeing. They say I must be one of the wonders of God's own creation.
Wonder has taken me to some incredible places and introduced me to such amazing people. It's even inspired a best-selling novel about tolerance and inclusion that's now been read by millions around the world.
They say I must be one of the wonders of God's own creation.
There are many people who misunderstand what fiction is. They'll say fiction is a bunch of lies.
And this violence they see, they know no explanation.
But of all the experiences I've had associated with this song, the most powerful was meeting Kate and Kelly Daly and their parents, Nancy and Chris.
How often did you feel that people were setting limitations on the girls?
When very young, I let them make the choice. It was their body. And if they wanted to do something that bad, that they could put up with that kind of pain, who am I to say no, no, no? It was their experience in this planet and that body and their experience to have. And it wasn't up to me to say, don't do that. I think about it now. Some parents probably would have kids with this disease. They would think, oh my God, what was that woman thinking? You know, I don't know who they would have been had I made them the bubble kids.
Did you know you were having twins?
No, not until I got to the hospital.
And did you know there was any?
Didn't know anything was wrong. The doctor that was on the ambulance that took him down to New York was the one that said, you know, I think this is epidermolysis bullosa, EB for short. It's a very rare skin disorder, and it results in first, second, and third degree burn-like wounds. They asked us to just take one child, and we couldn't. We said, we're going to take them both. It was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 hours of nursing care a day for each. Sometimes they would wake up and not be able to swallow their own saliva. They would get corneal abrasions and not be able to see for anywhere between 1 day to a week. They would get up in the morning, and if there were sores or blisters on their feet, they would not be able to walk. It took away abilities.
I was looking through my Kate and Kelly box and I found this letter. It's from 1996. Dear Natalie, my name is Chris Daly and I'm the proud father of 17-year-old twin girls, Kate and Kelly Daly. You met them backstage in Poughkeepsie when you last played the Civic Center along with their cousin Jen and their favorite Uncle Pat. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kindness. I truly can't express how much that meant to them.
She was very gracious, and she took us into her dressing room and she gave us autographed pictures and she took Polaroids with us. We were graduating from high school that year and my dad wanted to invite her to our graduation party. And we said, Dad, she probably won't even remember us. She sent us a note saying, I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your graduation party, but I do remember you and I'm doing a concert in New Paltz and I was hoping that you would come. So we went to the New Paltz concert and she dedicated the song Wonder to us, which is kind of our anthem.
When I wrote the song Wonder, I didn't really know who it was about. I just knew it was about a child who had great challenges, but was exceptional, and was exceptional because of the love and support she had received. I had written the song about them, I just hadn't met them yet.
Ever since that day, we've been very good friends, excellent friends. She's like our big sister.
They were both such gifted writers and beautiful singers, but I don't think they'd ever written songs before.
I was first.
Yeah, and getting them in my studio and sort of going into workshop mode with them was just amazing to watch the way that they responded.
This is a song that we learned from Natalie. Oh, won't you sit down, sister? I can't sit down. Oh, won't you sit down, sister? I can't sit down. Oh, won't you sit down, sister? I can't sit down because I just got to heaven and I'm gonna look around.
They called you a mentor, they would say, sister, mentor, and friend. You held out things in their life that, yes, I have to do all these really painful things, and life can be very hard, but there's these moments and they just were in that moment with you, and it's pure joy.
Mhm.
It's if you know, it's a spectrum. If you know that much pain, you can know even higher joy.
As the years went by and the disease became more ruthless, and I knew them better and they trusted me more and let me in. That's what I felt like. Our friendship became more real and deeper when they allowed me to see the pain.
She doesn't shy away from the hard parts of my life. Like all the people that we really connect with and that we really love will not just be there for the laughter, but they will also let us cry with them, and they will cry with us and for us. A lot of people who would see that kind of pain would look away, and she doesn't look away.
They were transported by music, and especially her music. And then fast forward, when they died, we had taken all their bandages off, and for their whole life they were bandaged from the minute they came into the world, and they never had time without bandages. And we took all the bandages off, we washed them, and we put the clothes that they had picked, and we played Wonder. When they left the house, everybody joined hands, had gathered, and we sung them out of the house.
I mean, there is something nebulous about why you connect with people. And it's like, friendships and romances to me are sort of the same. Like I fall in love with my friends, and there's that spark that makes you just love someone.
Doctors have come from distant cities just to see me. Stand over my bed, just believing what they see. They say heaven's been God's own creation, and as far as they see, no explanation.
What a beautiful video, Randy. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Well, and again, the title of the song becomes the book, and the book becomes the movie, and all three celebrate differently abled students. Part 7, using screens during this time of pandemic and beyond. Optimism, tips, recommendations, and again, your turn. So in some ways, our adaptations to staying at home have made us use technologies, as a number of you reflected it in the chat, in ways that are great for children, in service of relationships. Kids may be watching more Netflix and playing more video games than usual, but they're also video chatting more, playing games with schoolmates, and even enjoying online play dates. Though nothing will ever replace in-person interactions for children, using tech to strengthen relationships is now more important than ever. And with that in mind, here are some recommendations when it comes to using screens during this time. Don't feel guilty. We're living through a massive cultural shock. Families have enough stress to deal with, and counting screen minutes should be very low on the list of concerns for any of us. Not all screens are created equal. Worried that the online classroom is adding to your kids' screen time? Don't be. Screen activities shouldn't be lumped together. Some are educational, some are just for fun. Some are high quality, some are a guilty pleasure. What we do on screens and how we do it is more important than the time spent. Good content is key. Choose age-appropriate, high-quality media and tech for your kids. Get creative. Let kids use your phone to shoot photos and videos and then go to town with stickers, slow-mo, and other editing tools. Give them a prompt like, take 10 pictures of something round and then write a story connecting things. Have them make their own memes, record a song, choreograph a dance video, anything that gets them using screens to fulfill their imaginations. Use tech to bond. Relationships are critical to kids' healthy development. Tech can and should help kids connect to friends and family, collaborate with each other, play, share stories, pictures, and videos. Talk about it. A number of you mentioned this. We're in a unique position where kids are likely using screens more, and we may have more opportunities to join them or to at least engage with them about what they're watching and playing. Ask questions about their favorite games, shows, and characters. Discuss ideas and issues they read about or learn about through a TV show or a game. We just talked about wonder. This is an opportunity for learning about each other and sharing values. Balance still matters. We should aim for a balance throughout the week. So more screens, sure, but also find time to be outside, to be active, indoors or outdoors, with or without screens. Eat well and talk to friends and family on the phone, on social media, or on video chat. And so here comes our second intermission. And we'd love to hear some comments and questions about what's been presented. So we'll open that up now. Kindly respond as Amai has asked you.
Yep, another great opportunity to ask Randy any particular burning question you might have, either in the chat or the Q&A function. So Randy, when you have, situations that pose difficult conversations, how do you as a parent get educated?
Well, actually, I have something I hope will be useful from some really good research. We have a whole section that talks about how hugely controversial 13 Reasons Why was and is. And so one of the things that we talk about is something called co-viewing. And I know this works because I talk about it with my good friend who has two daughters, two adolescents. And so what co-viewing is when you're watching, for example, Netflix, you, mom, parent are there with the kids while they're watching. And you don't say a word. You don't do like what my dad used to do. Hey, well, see how terrible these people, you are there like this. And what that yields over time around co-viewing is that kids start to share with you how they're taking this in. And there's the opportunity, is not editorializing about the content necessarily, but hearing how they are taking this in and what they make of it. And in particular with this, what they make of it respective of their own peer group. So that's one, and again, it's called co-viewing. And again, I don't want to give away the store, but we've got a whole section on what it means to co-view with your kids.
And those resources can be found on your website?
Well, I'm sorry, this is a plug, but it's in our online program.
Sure, sure. And we'll send information about that
Yeah, great.
to attendees, of course. Just wanted to make sure that people know where to find those important
Yes,
resources.
thank you.
For younger children, how do you determine what is an appropriate amount of screen time or topics? Especially kids who are younger than 8 or 9, that tween category.
Well, it's interesting because when screens, also broadly defined, first came out, the American Academy of Pediatrics said, like no screen time. And it's been sort of a sliding scale over time with the increased prevalence. So I'm saying that not to fudge or dodge the question, but there isn't really a consensus that I'm aware of around optimal screen time. And I think that what the research that I look at and that's in this program is talking about is number one, balance. I mean, this is so obvious that you cannot replicate with children being live among other children. I mean, that's been, in my view, one of the harrowing aspects of COVID is kids don't get to, for all that good stuff that happens, between classes, the playground, the lunchroom where kids are learning how to be with other people. But so there's that. But I think the most significant thing is what kids are watching or viewing and participating in, and the quality of it. I mean, there's a lot of really rich content, and now I know books and movies best. There is just in this, Disney's Genius was screening Hamilton last summer. I mean, the streaming of Hamilton, I might add the edited version of Hamilton, went through the roof on Disney Plus. And here's an example of an extraordinary story that was brought, that capitalized on the fact that we're home in high quality, in my view, content. So I don't mean to be amorphous, but it really is, I used to teach elementary school. I taught 3rd grade, and I would always say to parents, you know your own children best more than anybody sometimes. My mother used to say to me, I know what you're thinking even before you say it. And I do think there is that wisdom that in this time that is so confusing, parents are really their own best judges of their own children, in my view.
Excellent. Can you touch a little bit on some of the research you mentioned education and having to do school virtually, but technology within the classroom is obviously here to stay. So as teachers and parents participate in these sorts of crossover opportunities, what is the research and what is that showing, how that's affecting children?
A lot of it is remains to be seen. There's contradictory research. There is a lot of work coming out on what's called Zoom fatigue. And I think that the jury remains out if you want a really honest answer. I think people are operating without a framework. I think that teachers are doing the best they can. I think that there is a whole new realm now happening, for example, in school and community and family engagement, where Zoom calls make possible something that might have been more complicated around going to the school on, let's say, PTA night, or, so that there are bad and good. But my comment would be that there hasn't been a definitive body of research that says, here are best practices.
No, and we appreciate your honesty. I think that's the most important thing for parents to take away, is that it is constantly changing, and there's always new
Absolutely.
information coming out, just as there are always new apps coming out, new, sources of content, etc. How can parents set limits on children's screen time while also teaching self-moderation?
Well, see, I'm going to go back to something that I said, by being really clear as parents about what they are doing. And I think it would make a wonderful family conversation within an age appropriate range to really have everybody look at what they're doing. Because again, it's like in teaching, there's a book called We Can't Teach What We Don't Know. And so I think that parents have to work with kids to say and be transparent about what they're doing, so that there is a very honest, transparent conversation going on. And I think in the very best of ways, parents might be the ones to really lead the way before being prescriptive and prohibitive about kids, by acknowledging what they're doing. And again, we find in the first run of our program, many of the adults, the educators in particular, were very surprised when they did an honest assessment of what they were doing. It adds up. You don't know.
Right. So how does a parent model that, explain that? Do you have suggestions for conversation starters about their own behavior with their children?
Sure. I think sentence starters like, this week I have spent too much time, or that kind of thing, to encourage active dialogue. If you've seen the movie about social media, there's an exercise there where people are urged to shut off their notifications. Try that. Try that for a day. Shut off all your notifications. So during this webinar, I have my Apple Watch over here, and I purposely turned it over because I know how easy it is for me almost habitually to look at that. Watch what happens when you turn off your notifications. Just try it for a day. I'm of an age when email first came out. Now I'm dating myself, but I asked my students in an educational philosophy class not to use email for a day. And most students couldn't do it. And I said, well, what else did you notice? And they said, well, your word is more good. Meaning you didn't have this way to fudge and say, oh, I got busy and I didn't see your email and I couldn't get there. That if you said something was going to happen because you didn't have email, you really had to make good on it, like literally and physically. So that would be a really interesting, challenging one, would be to shut off your notifications and see what happens. All of them.
I was kind of a slightly different question, and then I'll let you shift back to whatever remaining close you have. Can you talk a little bit? We touched briefly on creativity with sort of media and technology. Do you have any advice for parents on how to inspire those creative actions?
Well, now you're talking to a movie person, and I will say, and one of my colleagues, who is here with me today, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but what kids know about movie making, if you give them very simple software, fourth graders, fifth graders, you will see that kids have already picked up the conventions of the medium. And that would be one I would say would be to encourage kids to become storytellers, visual storytellers. I mean, again, I early on, I talked about how literacy now is not exclusively bound by reading a book. And here we are. We're in this visual world now. And my guess will be, even when we, quote, go back to live, we will be far more in a visual space than we ever have. And so I would encourage parents to get software, take your lead from your kids, and watch as kids learn how to tell, even like, again, I'm dating myself, even things like claymation with Gumby and Pokey. Kids, then there are programs for this that are really amazing. And your kids will be telling you something by the stories they choose to tell visually.
So do you think that's the most important takeaway? It isn't necessarily the medium, but perhaps the story that, you know, ultimately, however they got there is something for parents to pay attention to.
Yes, and then for the school parent piece, I would say, please investigate and interrogate the extent to which the school is capitalizing on media literacy, on really showing kids what are accurate sources of information. How do you know this is accurate? What is your source? How are you making that claim? And again, to understand whether it be, you know, a TikTok video, that messages are constructed, and they are constructed either for power or for profit. So you've got to really interrogate that and say, so when you see a video, to ask what's going on, and again, to use in school, not as this sort of add-on over here, so that teachers roll their eyes and say, oh my God, this is one more thing we've got to teach, but that media literacy is really embedded, whether it's social studies or language arts. This is a function of the way we now participate in information.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I know some of you may have to hop off as your break has ended. You need to get back to work, etc. We will certainly email the remainder of the slides and the full recording to all registrants. I'll let Andy wrap it up from here.
Yes. So here comes the pitch. So we've got two programs going up. One goes up on April 14th, which is about digital and media literacy. And the second program about taking books and movies seriously goes up in May. And we are thrilled to be offering professional education to parents. So please come join us.
Excellent. We have a few moments for a remainder of questions. If anybody else has any questions that they'd like to ask of Randy. Otherwise, we are more than happy to email everybody the contents of this recording as well as the slides. Otherwise, the chat will continue to be monitored for the next couple of minutes. Randy, if you have any other points that you wanted to make, please feel free to do so.
No, I'll just keep this up. Again, I can't tell you how excited I am that we've got online programming, and that in my view, it's about time we've asked parents to join us. So as they say on Price is Right, come on down.
We've got some questions more about tools and platforms. Do you have advice for parents on how to monitor what your kids are doing online and how to have that conversation?
It's interesting. The questions about monitoring, I think they come from a kind of basic fear that something is going on that, and so I think, I could say, well, here, do this, but I want to really come back to the fact that the technology either heightens in the best of ways or exacerbates in the worst of ways the relationship that already exists. That kids whose parents are in dialogue are going to be less inclined to use that word sneaky or going here or there. And I do think that around setting limits, that's a conversation, and that's a conversation that parents can be having with other parents, just to look around and see who's doing what. You know, the days of schools asking kids to walk in with their iPhones and stick it in a holster, those days are gone. They're permanently gone. And so then what? Again, you're talking about something that really has to do with, this is an old phrase, that has to do with a certain kind of self-control. That we use this now, we don't use this now, and cultivating those habits come from other places that then land on media and iPhones and tools.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you bringing all of this information to us. It's been a really, really impactful session. Again, thank you all for joining our Learning Lab today. We at National PTA appreciate the Harvard Graduate School of Education for sponsoring this Learning Lab. Again, all of the slides and the recording will be emailed to registrants, and the video will be posted on our YouTube page shortly. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us, and we will be happy to answer them as best we can. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.